Misfits, before we jump into today's episode, I want to share something very special with you. After hosting over 450 episodes of The Misfit Entrepreneur and sitting down with some of the world's top founders, investors, and high performers, I started to notice something. Different industries, different backgrounds, different paths, but the same patterns kept showing up. So I distilled those patterns into a short, powerful guide called The Misfit Code: 21 Uncomfortable Truths from 450 plus entrepreneurs. This isn't motivational fluff, it's not theory, and it's definitely not the recycled advice that you hear everywhere else. In fact, it's a fast paced, practical playbook that you can read in one sitting and then apply immediately to help you execute better, raise your standards, break through to your next level. And if you know you're capable of more, or you feel like you've outgrown where you are, or if you're tired of knowing what to do but not executing consistently, this guide was created for you. You can download it for free right now by going to misfitentrepreneur.com/truths. That's misfitentrepreneur.com/truths. Grab the guide, read it in one sitting, and then come back and work through one misfit truth per day. All right, with that said, let's jump into today's episode. Hello, Misfit Entrepreneurs. This is Dave Lukas, and welcome to another episode of the Misfit Entrepreneur, where it's our job to unleash your inner misfit and break through to higher levels of success, wealth, and fulfillment by bringing you the best insight and information from the world's top entrepreneurs with a specific focus on their misfit side, the specific traits, habits, and secrets that have allowed them to thrive and succeed. As a reminder, if you're new to watching us on our YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button below. Give this video a like and comment as well. We do our best to respond to all comments as timely as possible. This week's Misfit Entrepreneur is George Rivera. George built and scaled multiple 7- and 8-figure businesses, including a $200 million plus brand. And by every measure on paper, he was winning, but that growth was quietly costing him something money can't buy: the moments with his family that he knew he'd never get back. And it took sort of a gut punch to wake him up and give him a wake-up call to see it. 2 weeks before his father passed away, his dad told him something. And he said, George, don't miss Leo's games. That's George's son. I missed too many of yours. And that's something that George never forgot. That single sentence forced him to tear everything down and rebuild. And out of that came the Buyback Time Formula, a system that helps founders reclaim 10 to 30 plus hours a week without shrinking their profit. So the business grows without them being the bottleneck. George is now the leading voice for founders who refuse to be unstoppable in business and invisible at home. Today, we're really going to jump in and go into exactly how he did it and exactly how you can do it, right? The mindset shift, the systems, the hard truth that most founders, solve every problem in their business except the one that actually matters. So, George, are you ready to unleash your inner misfit?
I am, Dave. Excited to be here. Let's go.
Hey, it's great to have you on, and I've been fortunate to get a chance to know you a little bit. And you've got a pretty incredible story because, yes, by all means, you had built and scaled a massive company, super successful. But where it really mattered to be successful at home, you weren't doing that, and you kind of had that come to Jesus moment with yourself and changed it. So take 5 minutes or so and just tell us that story. How'd you get to where you're at?
Yeah, I'll kind of start with the high level here. So I'm a 31-year entrepreneur. I started my business when I was 17 back in the mid 90s. And I started in the direct response space, offline, direct mail, classified ads in newspapers, if your listeners can remember those days. And a couple years later went online and been online ever since. Still do a lot of multi-channel marketing because I still remember the old school, and a lot of people forget about that. And I've scaled companies overall on my career over 400 million in sales. And while that might sound fun and exciting, nearly lost my family in the process. Parallel story here to everything, like you said. In 2015, my dad, 2 weeks before he passed away, like a deathbed confession, deathbed statement, he says, "Don't miss Leo's games. I missed too many of yours." At the time that he said that, my son Leo was just 9 months old, but I'm already missing him, learning how to walk and talk. He was really early in that. The sad thing is I couldn't even tell you what I missed it for. I wish at least I had a story for that, but it's like, I don't. And then it was nice closure to whatever it is I went through as a kid. I played in about 40 basketball games in high school, and my dad only went to one of them. Not a big deal. It's like you already know who your parents are by high school. Shouldn't be a shock. But The part that would get to me is like all of my teammates, like all their dads were there for all the games, cheering them on after they scored every basket. And I do my thing, and there's no dad cheering me on. And I remember looking at another dad just loving on his kid, and I was like, I wish that was my dad. And I would have crushed my dad because he was a good man. He was just from that era where your value to this world is in what you can provide for your family, and as long as you do that, then it's like you're good. Of course, I realized that wasn't the way he wished he lived his life, but I guess that's the excuse he gave himself. So nice closure to whatever that was. But coming back to the moment he told me that, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm version 2 of you all over again. I see my future where it's headed if I don't change anything. So I'm like, okay, message received, got it. We're changing this, but I'm going to have to start tomorrow because I'm working 16 hours today. And of course, sometimes tomorrow means never. In my case, the tomorrow meant 3 years. And so dad passes away. And it's crazy to receive that kind of message and to feel it, and you still don't change anything at that moment. It's interesting. But then fast forward 3 years, scaling my business to multiple 8 figures per year, hitting record numbers, printing money, but hating life. I know hate's a strong word, but I don't know how else to explain feeling like your family's getting ripped away from you, nearly losing them, and losing a bit of my soul at the same time. And so I came to the conclusion, like, I want out. I'm done. We're really going to change things now. So I'm either going to like burn this thing down on the ground, or I'm going to sell it. Um, it's hard to sell a business, any business, but especially one like mine overnight. I mean, they just don't happen. It's a multi-year process. LOIs fail at an 80% rate. Like, that ain't going to fix my problem tomorrow, but I could burn it down. I was well financed. I could live with the breakage. That'll give me my sanity back, my family. I can rebuild a business that supported the lifestyle that I claimed to really want. Bad idea though, because I already had a successful business. It was just a massive design flaw in the business that made me the most important person to it. My nervous system couldn't rest. I was always on call. Felt like that if I take a little bit of time off, something would break. And so over the next couple of years, I had to redesign and restructure my business. And it all started when a coach and a mentor walked me off the ledge of making a not so smart decision of potentially burning it down. And he just said, stop doing what you don't like doing and just keep doing what you're good at. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, 23 years in business, and somehow that finally clicked. I guess I'm a late bloomer, whatever. Started doing the work, and the pinnacle of the transformation was going from 90-hour work weeks down to like 0, like off the grid, but never working more than 30 hours by design, by intention. Actually doubling my income. I was willing to sacrifice it, but actually made more money. And it's crazy when you stop doing the things you shouldn't do and somebody else does them way better than you ever could for much less than your time is worth. You make more money. Crazy. But you sort of just have to experience it to really believe it. And then the last thing is, I'd say the most impressive is that I never missed any of Leo's games like my dad told me not to. I was there for the games. In fact, when he was 8 years old, I taught him how to negotiate real estate, because we do real estate as a byproduct of the cash in the business. He negotiated the whole deal. Of course, I coached him initially, but he negotiated it, and we got the house. And I love the legacy thinking there, where he's going to tell his kids one day about going with grandpa and making deals. And fast forward to current day, he's got a podcast, and you're going to be an awesome guest of his soon.
Yeah.
150 plus episodes. It's called Leo Interviews. And on the success of that, we created Leo Interviews Academy to teach other kids on how to do the same thing. And because I altered my trajectory because of my dad's words, that influenced my son's trajectory and how he wants to impact other trajectories. And so kind of like circling back to what I do today, I realized since my life has been altered by what my dad told me, I'm like, I need to get this message out to the world. Just change Leo for your child's name, change games for dances, events, recitals, whatever is important in your family, and make that message for you. So I come out from behind the scenes, scaling companies, and I'm like, I'm George. I've got a great message to share with the world. And the world reflects back like, who the heck are you and why should we believe you? So I'm like, direct response marketing, personal branding, kind of two different things. And so that's led me to getting on podcasts, masterminds, speaking from stages, writing books and all that. And so all of that leads us to where we are today. And so I'll just kind of leave it there wherever you want to go.
No, that's great. So I've got a number of questions just from that. The first is, and I think you can weave this in. Like, I want you to cover like what the buyback time formula is, but like we can do it maybe in some of the context of the questions, right? So, because a lot of founders think like the answer to being overworked is we just need to grow more, right? And as you kind of said, you discovered that the answer was actually be needed less, and I think that's part of the buyback time formula. So, like, talked about that. Why is that shift so hard for high performing entrepreneurs to make?
Yeah, I believe it's because like our nervous system is wired to just like working, and we associate that if I work harder, I'm gonna make more money. And there's probably plenty of evidence in our lives that have sort of led us to a certain place to believe that, because you gotta put in the work to actually start making money. So it's true to some degree, but then you reach this point, the point of diminishing returns is like, yeah, now we're starting to work backwards, and now I'm starting to work on things that don't move the needle while everything else is suffering. Like in my case, for example, scaling my business, $20 million a year in 2018. And the lifeblood of the business is bringing in cash, bringing in revenue. How do you do that? By creating new offers, entering new marketplaces. Like that's where like my zone of genius is. And that's where my time should be, not spending time in, HR related things, merchant accounts, customer support. And the crazy thing is I had a team to handle all those things, but I didn't have any systems or processes in place to even create escalation rules. Like, don't just interrupt me in the middle of the day with nothing. Like, there needs to be, a standard, a process, and rules before you can even approach me. Show me what you've done. What have you tried? Give me some suggestions first. It was kind of like a free for all. And I have this saying, like, you're either scaling freedom or you're scaling chaos. And for far too long, I was scaling chaos. And yeah, founders think, hey, let's just make more money. Money will solve all the problems. And maybe that's true in some senses, but from an operational perspective, it's just going to take more out of the founder.
Well, and a lot of times in this, I've seen this tons of times, the founder ends up being this bottleneck, right? Now, even if they got team and everything else, everything has to go through them because, they feel the need to have to do that. They, instead of like really empowering their team to make decisions and fail forward, learn from the mistakes, do all that stuff, right? They try to like shield that. And it just is like an albatross around the business's neck, right? So like, what are the first things that you have people like eliminate or automate or even delegate to like break that type of habit? Because it's very prevalent.
Yeah, well, the first thing is we got to shine a light on all the activities that you're doing. I call that a time freedom audit. There's other names to it, but
Mm.
and there's a specific process on how to identify those things. But once you have that list of things, there's only three things that you can do with those that you aren't going to do, which you just mentioned. Eliminate anything that doesn't move the needle. For me, that was just getting on too many meetings. With if you've got people on your team that can attend those meetings, plus with AI and note takers these days, it's like the founder, especially when you've got other people, should never have to attend a meeting unless there's like some massive strategic decision happening. But I realized I was attending too many, meetings that didn't really have any, like, it's like I could have gotten this update in an email after the call that would have taken me 3 seconds to like look at and say, do I need to take action? Yes or no? And then another few minutes to take whatever action that is. And so that's one of the first things, low hanging fruit, is to eliminate like too many meetings, and then automate. Like with AI, it's easier than ever these days to automate things, especially anything that repeats. And then the other last thing, or the last thing, is delegate. But instead of delegating tasks, which I was the king of delegating tasks, you want to delegate outcomes. You want to show the people you're delegating to, what does the outcome look like? What does success look like in what I'm asking you to do? Show them an example, give them the liberty to get to that conclusion if it's a different, more efficient way than yours. But you still want to provide the initial roadmap to get there, and then give them the freedom to find a more efficient way if possible. And there's a process to do that. But I'd say on a high level, just getting anything that I did that I shouldn't do through that process was my first step at capturing my freedom.
What's the way that you would tell somebody like listening today, like, all right, so they hear you're like, okay, I get it, right? Like the first thing it sounds like people can't get what they want unless they know what they want. So they have to like set the intention in the goal, but they also need to know where they're starting, right? So how does somebody like take inventory and then basically decide on their zone of genius and discipline themselves to stay in that lane?
Yeah, and I think most founders, even without doing what I call the time freedom audit, they already instinctively know that there's a number of things that they're doing that they shouldn't be doing, but they're just doing it because they think, oh, it's just better because it'll be done faster than me training somebody else to do it. And that might be true like in the immediate, but you're just robbing from the future if that continues to be your mindset, every single day. So what I tell founders is identify the things that you shouldn't be doing. And again, there's a process for that. And then get those things out of your head and onto some sort of documentation. my favorite way of doing it is through, say, like a Loom screen share, and then put that transcript in your favorite AI, create an SOP out of it, share it to
Mm-hmm.
whoever it is you're delegating it to. And I say, hey, I've got 10 minutes or 30, whatever the time is, and please review this. I'm right here if you have any questions. Make sure you're on the same page. And when they say thumbs up, I'm good, I'm like, great, you own this. Like, I should never, ever, ever, ever see this again.
Mm.
Of course, if there's a vendor change or a strategic change in the process, of course, you got to revisit that. But until further notice, like, you own this. And you give them the ability to approach you in certain structured times if there are questions. But that eliminates context switching, which is a killer of productivity. And so, yeah, those were the beginnings of getting my freedom back, doing that properly.
So that's a really great point. It's a great exercise. The next thing that comes to mind, though, is, okay, so free up all this time, right? And there's like this, like, how does somebody, what do they do then? That's usually the challenge, right? Like, okay, I've got all this free time. I've got to fill it with something, right? And the tendency is to fill it with other work things, or go find or even create a problem to fix. So you feel value, like you're worthy in that sense. Like having a lot more free time for a lot of entrepreneurs can make them feel like they're not doing the best for the business. They're not putting their best foot, like all that stuff, right? Like, how does somebody overcome that syndrome, if you will?
Yeah. I think it's just getting used to the process. I've seen it so many times. And of course, speaking for myself as somebody who's been through this process, we fight so hard, or I fight so hard to get my time back. And then I start to slowly give it away by sort of like, unraveling and not sticking to the guidelines or the guardrails that I set myself up. I set myself, I'm only going to work from this time to this time. Then I start accepting meetings outside of that boundary and not respecting it as much. So it kind of creeps in. And it's because our nervous system, we're used to like being active, putting out fires, troubleshooting, building, creating new things. And my thing is, it's okay to like do all those things so long that it fits in the guardrails that you've established. And once you go outside of that, then you need to check, okay, are we really committed to getting our time back? And I think most of the time, yes, they are, but it's a habit that needs to be established and respected. And then, why are we doing this to begin with is a big question, which is kind of the other half of the work that I do, which is specifically with founder dads, who we get that time that we fought so hard for, and we give it back to our family with intention. But yeah, first we need to get a hold and control of the business and the time there.
No, it's a great segue, because I want to talk about what that intention looks like. And there's a test that you also do too. But before we get to that, I'm just going to take just a 1 minute break. We'll be right back and we'll get into all of that. Hey everyone, let me take 60 seconds, okay, maybe 90, on something that I get asked about constantly. You know that I've spent my life building businesses, but what a lot of you don't know is that for over 20 years, I've been generating a major income stream through trading options. And the reason that I started doing that has everything to do with being an entrepreneur. Here's what I noticed. The best operators I know are ruthless in their business. They know their cost of acquisition. They know their margins to the decimal. And then they take the money that business generates and they put it somewhere with worse odds than a casino. I'm not exaggerating. The average stock buyer has roughly a 33% chance of making money on that purchase. A blackjack player has better odds than that. In fact, they have 46.36% odds of winning. So the question I finally asked myself was, if I keep losing, who's winning? And how do I become that person? The answer was to stop being the one buying the lottery ticket and start being the one selling it. Same market, opposite side of the math. And it turns out you can run it as a system. Rules, checklists, position sizing, define risk in about 10 to 15 minutes a day or less. That's what the wealth stacker system is. I put the foundation of it into a free guide called Stop Hoping, Start Winning. It covers the math that most investors never see, the market property idea that lets you get paid to buy stocks at a discount, and why the fees that you're paying are probably costing more than you think. It's free. It takes maybe 15 minutes to read, and it'll change how you look at your capital. Just go to wealthstackersystem.com/start winning. Again, that's wealthstackersystem.com/start winning. I put the link in the show notes. Remember, options carry risk. Consult your financial advisor before making any investment. Now back to the episode. So, George, there's a test that I've heard you talk about. You call it the 2 week vacation test, right? So, like, tell us what it is. Like, why is that the benchmark? And, like, what does it ultimately reveal, like, when a founder can't pass it?
Yeah. So yeah, the way that I explained the way we know we've reached the pinnacle of our work here is when we can take 2 weeks off and the business continues to grow and scale. Most people think taking time off from their business it's going to either level out or even go backwards. That's what we do not want to happen. And so the interesting thing is, like, when I'm working with a client on the onboarding call, so very early in the call, I'm like, hey, so look at your calendar, 6-ish months, give or take, and block out 2 weeks for your 2 week vacation test. And usually they're like, 2 weeks? Like, yeah, 2 weeks off the grid. You're going to do something, go somewhere. Like, I can't even take an afternoon off. How the heck am I going to take 2 weeks off? And I'm like, secretly inside, I'm like, I love that response because you need this more than you know if that's your initial reaction. So I actually love it. And I'm like, yeah, because the work starts right now. Like, the clock begins right now. And so the goal is to have, the low hanging fruit stuff off your plate within the first couple of weeks. By the end of 90 days, kind of have version one of what we've set up running. And then from 90 days to whatever that 6 month-ish period is, we're stress testing the system. So you were freaking out about an hour off in the afternoon. So we're just going to take off an afternoon, and you're going to see that the business didn't fall apart. And it's going to show your nervous system that, hey, we can do this. And so what's the worst that happened? Well, first, the business didn't collapse. So that's good. Maybe, the invoice didn't hit the accounting department because you're the one that usually sends it, or something went out a day late. Not catastrophic to the business. So we see, okay, what's it going to take to, like, automate that or delegate that? What's it going to take? And so we put that in place, and then we do another test, and that's an absence rehearsal test is what I call it. And we did 1 hour or an afternoon. We might do an overnight throughout the week, or 2 days off, or maybe take a long weekend, and then see. And then usually you'll find something else that we didn't catch in those first 90 days. Another similar issue of what you normally did, we just didn't track for whatever reason. You fix it, and then you do that a couple more times, and now your nervous system can relax because, hey, we stress tested the system. We're ready to go on our 2 week vacation. You're completely off the grid. Now, the only thing that I recommend that the founder, the owner, looks at during that time is a scorecard that they're going to get from their number two. And the scorecard's going to have, it could be anywhere from 5 to 8 numbers that every founder should know about their business every day. 2 of them are top line and bottom line, and there's a lot of stuff in the middle, So as long as you can see that those numbers are in a good spot, then the nervous system can rest, and you can take that focus away from the business and stressing back to the family, which is my hope is where they will be for those 2 weeks is with the family.
Well, it's the exercise of it actually, to me, would be eye-opening in the sense that you want to find out, like, what's breaking and where, like, you're needed, so you can create the SOP or automate or delegate or do that. So, like, the 2 week test would uncover a lot of those things, which I would think in some ways, if you're approaching it, it's actually really exciting because you see, okay, here we fixed these few things and I can basically hand things off to run, right, and free myself more. So, back to that question, right? So freed up, got the time. Now, how does somebody? What's the path to take that with intention back to the things that really matter?
Yeah. So, whenever I work with somebody, they could do whatever they want with the time they get back, right? But I'm normally connected to or somehow, introduced to a founder dad who knows that they have to be plugged into their family. They know that they're missing the moments that matter for their family. So they buy into that, but they're like, who the heck's going to do all the other important stuff that only I can do in the business? And so once we get all that under control, and it doesn't have to wait till then, we start baby steps to sort of get you work back into the family. We, with intention, reconnect with the family. So let's say if I'm talking to a founder and they're like, man, I'm just blowing the whole thing. Like I spend zero time with my kids, my family. I'll say, well, there's 3 times in a day typically that are the most important. Like if you could at least pick one of those 3 times and just be a little touch point with your child, doesn't have to last long. It's in the morning when they wake up. It's when they come back from school, or maybe it could be like that between dinner and bedtime. Just a little, I love you, a hug, read them a book, whatever it might be. And it could be very short. And so, do the math. You got like 15 opportunities during the week to do those things. And so just like pick a few of those, and that's how you baby step back into their lives. And then the hope is that you start building a routine where they can start counting on you of being there. Because like in my case, when I got led to the point where like I hate this business, I want out, is because my family they started to plan a life without me. It wasn't like they were at the door about to leave, which I've seen where that movie ends, so no doubt that it was heading there. But it's like, hey, well, Dad, he means well, but he says he's going to be there. He's not. He cancels or he's on the phone. So like, we're just going to we're going to go to the game. We're going to make the trips. We're going to do plan the life without Dad. And that's when I realized something here needs to change. And I'm thankful that I realized it. But also I realized that other founder dads sometimes don't realize it. They just think their family is going through a phase and that's just where they're at right now in life, and sort of like blindly continue to go along. And my hope and thank you for helping me is getting that message out to wake up my fellow founder dads.
You mentioned earlier like a scoreboard and like even I think I've heard you call it Owner OS. Tell us a little bit about what that looks like so that somebody has an idea of what they need to put together for themselves.
Yeah, it's every company is going to have, like I said, maybe anywhere from 5 to 8 numbers that they should be aware of at any given point. And the way that founders typically do it, or I'll speak for myself, the way that I used to do it is I'd have 6, 7, 8 different CRMs and systems that I'd be logging into. I'm like, here's one for revenue, here's the merchant accounts, what deposit in the banks, looking at the bank, checking my autoresponders and my conversion rates and all that. And so you need to identify what are those key numbers in your business that you need to be aware of on a daily basis so that you can catch those trends, be it good trends or trends where you need to take action. And so, putting that together is the beginning of getting that awareness without having to log into a bunch of different accounts. And that's the beginning of the Owner OS.
And so I take it comes with that is because at some point you have to, in order to truly, I don't want to say extricate yourself from the business, but to give up control to and empower others, there has to be like rule sets around, as I've gone through this, it's not just SOPs, it's like who can make what decisions when. Yep. Like if we're going to purchase, what's the amount that is the threshold where I need to be notified and okay. Like there's a lot of that stuff, right? And then there's, a new kind of, since you're not doing everything in the business every day and everything else, then there's kind of that how you lead and kind of the cadence you put together for how you lead your teams or your people. Like what have you learned about how to do that well?
Absolutely. So yeah, the first part is decision rights, is empowering your team to make certain decisions to a certain point. For example, back when I first started in the early days of our initial scaling, I'd say anything under $500 that you need to refund, just do it. Don't even ask me. Anything over, let's talk about it. It's probably worth bringing up. Like, what's going on? Is there something deeper in here that we need to learn about? Same with like tools and subscriptions. I got a team that's always testing out different things, different tools for tracking things or customer support things and efficiencies. Anything over $500, let's discuss. Anything under, just go for it. If we're like subscribing to services under $500 a month, then you also want to be aware of that, because like a year later, those little buys turn into thousands and compounded over a number of different tools and stuff that could be real money. And so we do have a frequency, and in my company specifically is every Thursday morning we get on a call, 15-minute call, and we discuss what are the tools we subscribe to. Are they working well? Do we keep them? Do we cut them? Do we need more time? So we want to make sure we're understanding like where's everything fitting in. So while we are empowering decision rights, we're not just like, hey, go at it and there's no accountability. It's like, you can do it for now, but you will be accountable to let us know how that decision worked out in a structured time period that's not bombarding the founder with questions throughout the day, for approvals and things like that. So yeah, that's the decision rights.
Well, and I think a lesson just from my own experience with this for you guys watching, listening, is they're never going to do it necessarily how you do it, or maybe in some instances as good as you could do it, but the job gets done and you have to be okay with that, right? The only way your business can grow and scale is if you are not, as we said earlier, the bottleneck. And what that means is you have to let others find their way, kind of bring their own flavor to it. do it in the way. And so what you measure and look at maybe on some of that scorecard stuff is like, are you getting the results, right? They may go about it in a different way. They may not do it exactly as you want it done, but are they getting the results that you're looking for? And as long as that's happening, keep empowering them to do that. Give them guidance, give them wisdom in your leadership coaching sessions that you do, but don't try to make them you. Then that's usually where a team blows up and you lose people because you try to make them all you because they're never going to be you. And I think that's a really important thing. Another thing that's maybe counterintuitive, you kind of started with this, is you did this for yourself and you didn't just work less, right? Your business grew and your enterprise value of your business grew, ultimately making it, an even bigger sale because you were working fewer hours. So how does, from your experience, how did that happen? How does working fewer hours actually mean that the company is doing more revenue and doing better?
Yeah, and it's one of those counterintuitive things on the surface. It's like I'm working less, making more. Wow, how does that happen? And there's good explanation for it. And so I might have touched on it earlier. I was working as many as 90 hours a week. That's a lot of time. And I realized when I did my own time freedom audit that 50 of those 90 hours were done on tasks that I could have outsourced for $50 an hour or less. So I'm not a mathematician, but quick numbers, that's like $2,500 a week. For a company doing, pushing 20 million a year, not a whole lot. That's like, an hour of revenue for the business. And so I realized for not a whole lot of money, I can get more than half of my time back. Actually, yeah, it was a little bit more than half of my time. And the end result of that, I had 40 hours left, which is still a pretty full-time week. And so what happened is, instead of 40 hours, I actually compressed it down to 20 because now I'm working in my zone of genius only. I'm not stressing out about work. I'm not being interrupted through context switching, as I mentioned earlier, that kills productivity. My team has been empowered to make decisions and to run things on their own. And so like it's made that 40 hours compressed down to 20. And now I'm more enjoying life more. I'm living life more on my terms. And so it's making me more valuable to the company in the time that I'm working. So that all contributes to it. And touching on something you said earlier about just leadership, I thought I was being a great, amazing leader by being a firefighter to my company. And there's a little bit of a dopamine hit that comes with that because you put it out and the team's like, George, you're awesome. We know we can count on you. And I'm like, of course, I'm the man. And it just like fills the ego, I guess. But horrible leadership skills because like, I did that for a number of years. And had you asked me at that time, I'm a good leader because look at how much they love me. But imagine, because it's not like they're going to stay with me for their whole life. They go to their next job and they have this period of working for George, however they explain that. And, hey, the next boss, what did you do for George? Oh, anytime I had a problem, I just gave him, the problem and he answered it and I just, did it. Oh, well, what did you do? Like, did you solve the problem? And so I realized that the best way to empower them is to give them the ability and give them the skills and the permission to do what I have them doing. And that's how they will be more valuable to not only to my company in the current, but, make them more valuable asset in the future as well to serve them better.
Yeah, and I think excellent point. I mean, that's probably the crux of a lot of it, right? Because you can free yourself, you can do that stuff, but if you don't, again, learn to lead by empowering and letting people, shine instead of you, right? It can fall apart. My last question before we get to your Misfit 3, obviously a lot of what we've talked about are lessons you learned and then are now teaching people through your entrepreneur journey. Your son, Leo, is on his own entrepreneur journey. You've been working with him on that. What are lessons that you've learned from him and helping him on that journey so far?
Well, I love the fact that he's coming at this from a child's perspective. Obviously, he's just 11, so that's kind of a given. But it's great to see a person come into something without the history and the wounds that, say, somebody today coming into it. And, we're all going to enter our journey from the past and we can't change all that. So that's fine. It's not anything anybody can do about their past, but he has no doubts. He sees it like, I'm just going to do it. Like there's no obstacles in the way. And he hasn't really learned, how to make these big excuses yet. Maybe that's just something every human will figure out. But that childlike faith in that, hey, dad's telling me that this is the way to go. I'm just gonna do it. I don't know any other way. And so it's a beautiful thing because, I work with friends and clients, and sometimes I'm like, hey, this is how you know. What about this? And I'm like, no, I said this way. And so I don't really encounter that with my son on specific business stuff. Now, on other things that he claims to be an expert in, whatever 11-year-olds are expert, he definitely has plenty of that. But on the business track, on the podcasting, the entrepreneurship side, he's like, hey, Dad, am I doing this right? And it was awesome. Just a quick story too. Like last night, we had the pleasure of being in one of your trainings, and he's messaging me on the Zoom, and hey, how do tariffs impact the value of a stock? And I'm just like, oh man, yeah. I was like, we'll talk more about it later, but I'm sure there's a side impact. Maybe it's not direct, but in some cases it could be. So he's just asking all these cool questions, and so I just love seeing all that come out.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Yeah, it's in some ways, like you said, they're fearless. I guess in some ways, the innocence of the child, but also a biggest thing, and I guarantee it, just doesn't overthink it. He just doesn't, and that's, I think, a big thing that anybody can learn from. It's a great way to end it before we get to your Misfit 3. So we're going to do that. We're going to take just one more 1-minute break, and we'll be right back with George's Misfit 3. Misfit entrepreneurs, I want to tell you about an amazing resource that will have tremendous impact on your business and your revenue. I have used this solution in multiple businesses, and it has made an incredible difference. Let me start by asking you something. Do you know how much it costs your business when just one salesperson doesn't step up to deliver? Do you really know? The cost can easily exceed 6 figures for just one bad hire, not just from the time, effort, and resources in hiring them, but from the lost business and downtime as well, as you have to go find a new salesperson and everything surrounding that. And the last thing any growing business can afford is to have a failed hire, especially in sales, the revenue driver for the company. But what if there was a way to know someone checked all the boxes of a great sales hunter and closer before you ever hired them? That's the solution that I found from a company called Sales Drive. They have created a solution called Drive Test. It's a powerful hiring tool that separates high-performance salespeople from pretenders by measuring the most critical personality trait needed for success in sales: drive. Drive is composed of 3 non-teachable traits shared by all top producers: the need for achievement, competitiveness, and optimism. And knowing who has drive before the interview dramatically increases your chances of selecting salespeople who will produce for you while avoiding those costly bad hires. I've used the solution and it works. In fact, it works so well, I've referred them to every company that I work with. And they've created a very special offer so that you can try them for free as well. You can get a free drive test assessment today at www.misfitentrepreneur.com/sales drive. That's misfitentrepreneur.com/sales drive, all one word. Start using the drive test in your hiring and never hire a bad salesperson again. Okay, it's time for George's Misfit 3. These are the 3 things that he wants you to take that you can put in your business, your life, make a difference for yourself starting today. And the way that I always frame this to every guest that comes on the show is I say, hey, look, if you were going to leave this earth tomorrow and you could only leave behind your 3 best pieces of wisdom to the generations that come after you to help them live their best life, what would those 3 things be? So, George, what are your Misfit 3?
Dave, that's a great question. And yeah, I'm going to envision as if I'm talking to my son. And so I'm leaving this earth. He's not going to see me ever again. I'm going to say, number 1, put your faith in Jesus, because if we're going to see each other again, don't shoot the messenger. That's what God's word says. Just follow that. Number 2 is one day you're going to grow up and you're going to have a family. You're going to be tempted to chase a lot of things. But so long that anything you do, just make sure you maintain the respect for your family. Love the mother of your child, whether you're with her or not. Hopefully you don't have to get into that part at that age, but show your family love no matter what, and realize that you can always make money, but you can never redo a childhood. And then the last thing is, man, I would say, just, cherish these days. Try to bottle them up, if that makes sense. I remember when I first held my son, the one that I'm talking to now, supposedly, I'd say I knew that there would be challenges in the road ahead, and just in fatherhood and being a dad in and of itself. But the joy that I have right now holding my child in my arms is something that like I just bottle and tap into when there's days that are very frustrating. So like try to find those moments that you know you want to hang on to and just tap into them later when things get rough. I'd say those are my three. However you want to take them.
No, George is an excellent mystery three. All three are timeless and just great pieces of wisdom. So thank you for sharing that. If people do want to learn more about you, where should they go?
Yeah, I'd say the best place to go is founderdadtables.com. There, you're going to be able to find me on social, find references to some of the buyback time formula stuff we talked. And also, I have an open invite to Founder Dads anywhere in the world. I've had people from all over the country flying to my city of Austin, Texas to have dinner at my home where we sit down, we take the mask off. You know, you come in, big, successful walk. You're on top of the world. I know because I've done that walk. And you sit down, you take the mask off, and we get real. Like, what's keeping you up at night? And a lot of times, by the time men leave, they've been crying for half an hour because we get to the root of things. And so, the best place to start is founderdadtables.com and go from there.
Awesome, man. We'll link to all that in the show notes, the best show notes in the business for reasons I'll talk about more in a second. But first, for those of you that are new to the Misfit Entrepreneur, it's your first episode with us, welcome. It's such an honor to have you with us. And I hope you become a regular listener and subscriber. And for all of you that are with us week in and week out, I cannot thank you enough for your support of the show. You are what makes this go in over 100 countries every single week. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And make sure and go out and check out the show notes for this episode. They are the best in the business. Why? Because I do them myself. I go back through these episodes and I pick my best pieces of wisdom and tips and insights and like habits and things like that from great guests like George. And I share those with you. So they're very robust. They give you a lot of great detail and great insights. And then go out and give this episode a rating and review, like and comment on it. Help share George's message because we all know, and I say this in every episode, one great episode can change someone's life. Maybe something that George shared today was that missing link you were looking for to get to your next level. So share this with others. And again, George, thank you so much for coming on, sharing all your wisdom and insight today.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.